it's taken a long time for him to feel he can trust me, that he can open up. And I'm like, but I'm a psychologist, like I'm a great person to open up to. But it was the history of that, right? It was like he'd opened up and been vulnerable and I hadn't met him in that. So yeah, that did create that injury and that needed a lot of work to heal.
Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay respects to elders both past and present. This is Separate Bathrooms. I'm Brahe-Daddo.
I'm Daddo.
And today we are talking with a psychologist and careers expert, a mother of two, married for 12 years. She's been through quite a journey.
She has. She's going to share all about it. Postnatal anxiety, nearly the breakdown of her marriage twice, how they've battled, fought through, and have found love today. So we're really excited to invite Suzie Plush into the bathroom. Suzie, thank you so much for joining us in the bathroom. We've got a lot of good stuff that we want to talk to you about. Firstly, we would love to talk to you about your postnatal anxiety. I know it's a hugely impactful experience, not only for you, but for many women and couples as well. Can you talk us through what that was like for you with was it your firstborn?
Yeah, my firstborn.
Yeah.
So he's almost seven next year. So that's 7 years ago. And basically I had a brilliant pregnancy, no issues whatsoever, had a gorgeous, healthy baby, and he actually had undiagnosed silent reflux. And for those listeners that have had experience with a baby with silent reflux, it's exceptionally difficult. And what that often involves is a baby that cries for long periods of time, won't sleep. And for a new mum, we really did not know what we were doing and what was wrong with my son. And so that just led to months and months of complete sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And so I think I held it together really well the first, say, 4 months, 3 to 4 months. And then the cracks started to show really just with just the pure exhaustion. And then I got to the point that when he was sleeping, I still couldn't sleep. So ended up developing really bad insomnia just was really, really anxious. So it was interesting. I actually got a diagnosis of like an adjustment disorder with anxious mood, which is a little bit different to postnatal anxiety from the technical perspective. But what that basically involves is like I just wasn't coping with the adjustment of this new baby and the lack of sleep and his health challenges. And I think just my whole nervous system was just completely overloaded to the point that I was really struggling just to make basic decisions and I wasn't sleeping. And so everything just kind of fell apart really. Yeah.
I've heard of postnatal depression. I've never heard of postnatal anxiety. What's the difference? Or is there a difference?
Yeah, look, they're very much intertwined, but I guess the anxiety is more around, like just your nervous system's so overloaded. There's so much cortisol and stress hormones going through your system. You just can't calm your nervous system down really.
Yeah, right.
So that often involves lots of like obsessional thoughts or just, lots of rapid thinking, not being able to, kind of think clearly and often, not being able to sleep well as well. And a lot of worry about the baby, about yourself. It's often just that really heightened anxiety.
It's probably best to stay away from caffeine.
100%. But that's the thing. A lot of new mums, right, they're so tired and so they're having the caffeine, which then stimulates the nervous system too. So that can then, increase the stress hormones as well. Yeah.
And yet, that first year of a new baby, there's so much going on because you're doing your best that you can and you know that you're going to be sleep deprived anyway and that's kind of meant to be normal. So like at what point did you realize that what you were experiencing actually wasn't normal? Because sleep deprivation is something that of course we all go through with our newborns, but then it eases away. So at what point did you know this is not normal and I actually do need some extra assistance?
Yeah, I think the real clincher for me was I remember my mum had said to me, oh, hey, I'm going to go up to Woolworths. Do you need anything from the grocery store? I'll drop some groceries over. And I remember opening the fridge and I just could not even think of what I needed. Like it was just like my mind was so overwhelmed. I was like, I don't even know. Like I was at the point I was so tired and exhausted and sleep deprived that I just couldn't make basic decisions. And I think at that point I was like, I need to get sleep. I remember praying like I just, even if I won the lotto, I'd give all the money in the world away just to sleep. Like it was just this desperation, not being able to sleep. And those of the listeners that know what insomnia is like, you just get to a point where you just then get so anxious about going to sleep and then not being able to sleep, and then it's just this vicious cycle that then creates more anxiety as well. Yeah.
Alison's kind of deep in it right now with my snoring. I've seen her stand at the fridge with a vacant expression on her face going, I don't know what I'm going to have to eat.
Don't ask me anything. Don't ask me any questions. I've been awake for hours. I know. And look,
I'm snoring now and I'm awake.
We had a sleep expert in not long ago. God, and I bore my husband to death about sleep because to me it is the cornerstone. And I say this all the time, and I put this in my book about it is everything. You can have every vitamin, mineral, protein drink, exercise, massage. You can have everything else, but if you don't have the sleep your body needs, nothing else makes a dent.
I totally agree. And your brain just doesn't function properly.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
So I think a lot of times, like, new mums with babies that just are not sleeping, they might just get broken sleep, or they'll just be so wired that when the baby sleeps, they can't sleep. And so you're running on days where you're just absolutely exhausted. And I think that's when whole nervous system just gets overloaded. The anxiety kicks in, and it's often really tricky to kind of get out of that cycle.
So is it luck of the draw as to if you get it or if you suffer from it, from this postnatal anxiety?
Yeah, look, there's different factors that can make you more vulnerable. I think for me, interestingly, with my daughter, I had her 4 years later, I did not have any anxiety whatsoever. And she was a very settled baby, didn't have the reflux, breastfed really easily. And so there was just such ease with her. I had no issues with sleeping. Like, it was a completely different experience. So for me, I think, having like the adjustment issue with the anxiety was very much around the circumstances of having this baby that was really unsettled, not sleeping, and I had no control. Yeah. It was like whatever I just felt like I couldn't change the circumstance, and I think that's when you kind of lose hope. You're like, I've tried everything. I've tried this, I've tried that. The baby's still unsettled. And it wasn't until my son got diagnosed and he got a medication, and then I actually got some sleep medication to help me sleep. Yeah. That then, luckily for me, I think because I was a psychologist, I knew, okay, I'm not coping. People around me are saying I'm not coping. And so we're able to get on top of it pretty quickly. And then, by 6 months, I was in a much better place and coping really, really well. So, but some women, they can go like this for years without even realising, that it's an issue. So they know they're not coping, but they don't know how to fix it.
Were people not meaning to, obviously, but were they less likely to think that because being a psychologist, that you would know how to deal with what was going on? Yeah. Did they were like, oh, Susie's got this. Like, she's a psychologist. Yeah. So were people like thinking that about you?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were really shocked because they're like, you're normally the one that's like got your stuff together, right?
That's
and
right.
I didn't. And I think it was interesting. I had one experience with a pediatrician, and he was obviously very well-meaning, and I'm sure had great intentions, but he actually said to me, look, the reason why your baby is so unsettled is because you're a psychologist and you're a type A personality. And I remember coming out of that appointment just bawling, like absolutely gutted, going, oh my gosh, like the reason why my baby's so unsettled is because it's me. And it wasn't until later that, we realised actually there's a medical condition going on here. But I think there's so many conflicting views, there's so many different, things being said to women, and it's really hard to know. You're in this fog of being a new mum and, all the hormones, and you're like, well, is it me? Is it my baby? Is like, what's happening? Is this normal? Like, there's nothing to kind of, normalise things for you, really.
Right.
And a lot of conflicting views, and I think it can be really, really confusing, and that sense of lack of control is just huge. Yeah.
Oh, so that guy was that paediatrician was basically saying it's going down the leash sort of thing. You know,
yeah, it's my fault because I'm
right.
too like on edge, and most people would say I'm actually quite a relaxed person. So, you know, I like things done a certain way, but, you know, I was pretty like, I was like, no, I don't think it is me. But then I was doubting myself.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a lot of people are like, well, babies just cry and, you know, this is just normal. And I'm like, am I losing my mind? Like, I remember going like, this isn't fun. Like, why do people have children? Like, I just didn't get it. And then I was like, when I had my daughter and she didn't have those health complications, I was like, oh, this is why some people have 4 children. Like, I get it now. Like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, to play devil's advocate, though, Suzie, at the same time, I'm sure that paediatrician's probably come across situations where the child hasn't been affected, you know, and it really is going down the leash sort of thing. So he's probably just lumping you in that box without checking and balancing everything up.
Yes. And look, I don't hold anything. He's obviously very well trained and amazing, and that's just one school of thought, you know, when it comes to babies and why they cry, and some babies do just cry a lot. But I think, with my son, when it was diagnosed, it was just like, oh, okay, I get it now. So, and it is situational too. Like, you know, babies do sometimes get those vibes off your own nervous system. If you're dysregulated, then they're going to pick up on that too. But, I don't think it's a simplistic thing. And I think we've got to be really mindful of just throwing out, you know, blanket statements, because with women that are really vulnerable, like, it can make them feel like they're going a bit crazy.
Absolutely.
Look, you know,
you might not hold anything against him, but forever and ever I will. Don't worry about it, because I cannot stand if any woman is made to feel responsible in that way. That is not cool. I'll get his name later.
While she cools down, can I ask you, how did this affect your marriage?
Yeah, so it was massive on our marriage. I think we'd been married, 6 years up until that point, and really great first season. You know, we'd been together a couple of years before we got married. We'd been together about 8 years, and I would say just an amazing relationship, great foundations, you know, really good conflict resolution skills. So we were like, we've got this. And then, you know, throw in a reflux baby, my anxiety, all the different things going on with my son, and it just imploded. Like, it was just really full on. And I think, you know, what it shows, I think when you have a situation like that, any tiny fractures in your relationship, it's just exacerbated, isn't it? Just everything comes to the surface. And really any trauma in your life often comes up at that point too. So if you've got any resolved stuff that you're working through, it all comes up in that really stressful situation. So often a new baby can bring up a lot of stuff in a relationship.
Was he also being interrupted? I mean, because obviously you've got a crying baby. So was he, and I figured he was at work. So was he able to get sleep, or were you both sleep deprived? Yeah,
both of us. Yeah. And I think my husband copes a bit better on limited sleep than I do. I'm not great when I haven't had sleep. I need a lot of sleep. So we were just passing ships in the night, you know, doing 2 hours passing the baby back and forth. And I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to that. You know, I was feeding, and then he'd wake up, we'd do shifts throughout the night. And I remember when I'd put my baby down, my son's name's Jordan, I'd put him down and I would still be swaying. Do you know what I mean? Because he wouldn't.
I remember that. I totally remember that.
I'm still swaying back and forth. And you couldn't, some people would be like, oh, just wrap your baby, feed them and put them down. Yeah. Oh no, not him. You'd have to, you know, walk around all night. I'm surprised there's not dents in our floor from walking back and forth. But
it was a lot.
Yeah, and I think we just had the view of we just have to survive this. We just need to get through. You're just in absolute survival mode. And luckily we had a lot of support. And I think when we got to that stage where everyone was like, okay, Susie's not coping, then everyone kind of stepped in.
Great.
And we got a lot of support, which was really good.
What do you tell couples who are going through the same situation? I'm gathering that you're still with your husband.
Yes.
So you've made it through. Yes. So you've lived the experience. So not only are you coming from textbook in your work and your theories and your practice, but you've also lived it. What do you tell couples going through it now?
Yeah, I think what I've learned from, you know, theory, but also my own personal experience is I think just the absolute essential factor is just having that emotional connection with your partner. And I guess just that sense of I've got you. I've got your back. I'm here for you. I'm in this with you. And just that sense that, you're in it together and, when you're down, I'm there with you in the trenches. And I think just that sense of knowing your partner's got you is just so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
As you say, you went on to have a second baby, little girl.
Yes.
How did you prepare? Did you do something different with this birth, with the second time around, knowing the challenges that you had with the first time?
Yes, I did. To the point it was a bit excessive, but I think I was like, I cannot go through that experience again.
Yeah.
And I think I was just like we had even debated, do we want another child? Because we'd kind of stabilised after that. And then my son was about 3 and he was great and sleeping really well at that point. And, we're in a good place. But actually, let's do this again. And I thought, you know what? I've got to do things differently. So I just ate really clean through my pregnancy. I saw a naturopath. I stayed off dairy. I did all the diet things. And even with Jordan, I ate pretty well. But I was just really mindful. And I'd read up all about reflux and gut health and bone broths and all the things. Then
it's so good for you.
Oh, it stinks up the house though, doesn't it?
Know,
oh my God.
Good. All the
boiled bones
all
for
the
3 days? Come on.
Yeah.
So I did just buy it from like the health food store. I wasn't going to do the bones in the slow cooker pot thing. But anyway, I did all the things and I was I'd really prepared for like a natural birth and, did all the preparation for that. And amazingly, against all odds, we had no intervention, natural birth, and she was so healthy, all the top scores at the hospital, I think 9s for all the, when the baby's first born.
Yep.
And great, breastfed straight away and was like a unicorn baby. The babies, that people say, I remember saying to midwives, can you just check everything's okay with her? Because she just doesn't cry. I had to wake her for feeds. So very, very different experience with the 2 babies. You couldn't get 2 different experiences. But I kind of like that because when I'm talking with mums, even at the park or even clients, I kind of can relate to both experiences, experiences where it's been really difficult and then experiences where it's been really just easy and beautiful. So I've had kind of the both.
And to be able to say to a first-time mum that's struggling, it's like, look, I was with you. That's what I went through. My second child, however, has been so much easier. It's like Jordan took all the cries that the second one was going to do. So I'm so happy to hear that. Though I know from historically, from what you shared with us, something also was challenging in your marriage with the second baby. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, definitely. So we had kind of this with Jordan. I think we're both just in the trenches and we're just in survival mode and we're just trying to get through. But we felt like we're on the same team.
Yeah.
We felt like we were working together and we had each other. And, there was obviously conflict and challenges and all the things, but we were kind of in the trenches together. And I think what happened with my daughter was I was like, right, we've got to do things differently with her. And so my whole focus was like on my mental health, on nurturing myself. So I'd got all these people like cooking beautiful meals and I'd kind of did all this research around the 4th trimester, which is, the mums being nurtured that 12 weeks when baby's first born. So I really just stayed at home and I was in a little cocoon and I guess what I was doing was trying to like prevent me from, going down that same path and my daughter Elle to be really settled. So then that would minimize the conflict with my husband and I. And I thought that was going to be a great approach. But what ended up happening was my husband was off with my son because he was 4. And so he was taking him to the park and doing all these things. I guess it was the middle of COVID too, so there's all the stresses around that. But he'd take him for a bushwalk and I'd be home with baby. And we kind of divided and conquered, which a lot of couples do, right? But that was for months on end. And what actually happened was we became extremely disconnected and in our own lanes, in our own thing, to the point where we were like, oh my gosh, I feel like I don't even know you anymore. So we really lost massive connection, because I think my daughter was so easy. I was just with her and he was with my son. And yeah, that sense of connection was really lost in that period of time.
And so how did you find your way through that?
Yeah. Oh, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. So I think a lot of honest conversations. I feel like it's been quite interesting for me because I don't work with couples in my practice. I work a lot in the career space and also with individuals. I've never worked with couples or families. So I've done a real deep dive into a lot of couples work and what makes couples thrive. And I realised for us, how we often dealt with conflict was we just avoid it. And so there would be this sense that everything was okay because there was no fighting and we really respected each other. There was no name calling, you know, that we were generally getting along. But what was happening was resentment was being stuffed down. So on both ends, there was a lot of hurt and a lot of resentment. And that actually creates what you call an emotional injury. And so this emotional injury is often a feeling of abandonment from your partner not being there for you, maybe feeling rejected, or maybe feeling like, you know, you're not important to your partner. So on both sides, there was a lot of injuries that had occurred without either one of us really knowing that, because I think we're so focused on the kids and just getting through that a lot of stuff was just stuffed down until it all came up. And then I was like, oh my goodness, like I thought that everything was all right and it clearly is not. And then we had to wade through all of that, wade through all the hurts and the resentments and really learn again, okay, how do we communicate? How can we communicate without each one of us getting defensive? How can we be honest? How can we talk about what our needs are? Because really we'd been together for 12 years, so we'd actually become different people along that journey
It's
too.
a really good point.
What had bonded us initially and what we thought worked initially was no longer working because we'd evolved and we'd changed. So a lot of, really honest conversations, therapy, just really having to do the work. So I feel like for us, we've had to do the work, at those two stages when we've both had small children, my first, when I had my son and then also my daughter, where a lot of those difficulties that a lot of couples have earlier in their relationship didn't really come through for us till later.
Right.
Was it your decision, being a professional counsellor, was it your decision to bring in a therapist? Because I could see that in that situation, being a professional, having all the skills that you do, and you kind of, okay, you could probably say to your hubby, look, no worries, we got this. I know what to do in this situation in terms of how to communicate. I was going to say, I'm glad to hear you did it, because to bring a third person in so that you don't have to hold that place of professional, you can actually be in there and be the client.
Yes. Yeah. And look, really interesting, Cam. I have never worked with couples. So I don't really work in the relationship sphere. So for me, I know all the textbook stuff and, I work with individuals, but more so on individuals' mental health, not necessarily on relationships. So for me, I was like, I need more skills here. Like I thought I had this covered, but clearly I don't. And so it's quite humbling. And to realise that everyone at some point, has a hard time in marriage, like a hard time, and you got to fight for it. So, you have to dig deep and fight for it because I think for me, when we were going through that, it felt like the easier option actually felt like walking away. Like it really did. But because I was like, we need to grow, we need to dig really deep here because there's a lot of hurt there. And I think we tried to kind of navigate that ourselves, but we just were getting too triggered, and there's too much defensiveness and hurt. And we're like, we need we need help here. And we need tools. We need tools to figure out how we can communicate, because clearly we haven't been, I thought for our whole life we'd been communicating really well, but we're both avoiding conflict really. Right. So it was an illusion of peace. Yeah. But some of those wounds that were there were just being stuffed down and it wasn't being addressed. So that's what we really had to do, is dig deep to go, you know what, we need to bring up some of this stuff, bring up this hurt, be vulnerable and work through some of those really deep hurts. Yeah.
What were the tools that worked the best for you, that made the biggest impact?
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have heard of James Fishgill.
No.
Relationship. Oh, you have
Fishgill.
To have him.
What
on
a
this.
crazy
Fishgill.
name. Yeah.
Look him up on Insta.
Yeah.
Just absolute legend. He does. Big shout out to you, Fish, if you're listening to this.
You
so
know
we
him?
worked with him for a period of time. No, not a friend. I just stumbled across his work, and he does lots of training in couples conscious communication and conflict mind. And so his stuff was actually revolutionary. Like, it's amazing. He's got a very different take on couples communication. And so we'd actually tried some couples counselling, but it still just wasn't effective. And I was like, we need to learn how to, like, communicate again. And again, I'm like, I thought I was a good communicator, but I'm clearly not when it's about me. I'm great at telling other people how to communicate. So, James is amazing at just really giving us some tools and, telling us just some of the unconscious things our mind does in conflict. Very often when there's conflict, we go, I'm right, you're wrong. Like, that's the immediate automatic response. You don't understand. I'm the victim. You don't get it. And so just to kind of give language to that and normalize that and give us some tools was amazing. So, yeah, he's phenomenal. Check him out, everyone.
Is he an Aussie?
Yeah, Aussie. Yeah,
right on.
Lives in Western Australia. Amazing. Check him out on Insta.
Yeah, will do. There's that, because I adopted a thing in our marriage and just dealing in life. Really, give up the need to be right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now that's great in theory, right?
Yeah.
So I can go. All right, just give up the need to be right. So just say it's with me and Elle, right? I'm going. Yeah. All right. I just yes, dear, sort of thing. Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm not going to argue this out, but in my mind, I haven't said it. I'm still right, and you're wrong.
Yeah.
But so it's a really good tool. Give up the need to be right. I do it all over the place, and then there's sometimes, and it's usually with my most closest relationship where I have been known, and I'm calling bullshit on myself right now and that whole thing because, yes, outwardly I'm going, yeah, okay, I'm cool, I'm giving up the need to be right. But inside I'm going, motherfucker, I'm absolutely right here and you're wrong.
Yes.
And I walk away going, and then I have to go swim for 3 hours in very cold water with no wetsuit.
It's a kind of process.
That's right. Mind you, Suzie, like, I could see by his face, because he has the worst poker face on the planet. And I'll be saying it, and then I see this look on his face, and I know he's trying to keep it all inside. Just keep it all inside. But I'm like, he does not. He's just like, sure, honey, if that's what you think, that's fine. And meanwhile, the cheeks are sucked in, the eyes have turned red. I'm like, I'm sure that's what you think.
Excuse me, I need to go to the toilet.
I was actually just talking, though, on the way over here to Cam, because
we do talk every now and again.
We do every now and again. But just my thing is just, I am such a runner away from conflict. Like, I just run, and it's so automatic for me. And it's not just with Cam, it's with everyone. Like, if I just feel like I'm going to be hurt or I am hurt, I am such a runner, and it's really detrimental, and I keep seeing it more and more, how it plays out in my life. I'm like, you cannot keep running from this, because this is just not, you're losing the relationships that mean something to you because I'm running. So it's something maybe James can help.
I was going to say, Mr. Fishgill's probably got an answer.
Yeah, well, his stuff's amazing, but a lot of it is around, really trying to get into your partner's head and go, what was their intentions? What were they hoping for? What were they longing for? Instead of going, you're a jerk, or why don't you get it? Really going, okay, like what was their heart behind that? And then what were you hoping for? What were you longing for? And what's the hurt? And really using language, like, it's just beautiful, the language to be able to communicate that. I can see that this is what you're hoping for, but this is how it's kind of landed for me. So really honouring their intention, but then communicating your pain in a way they're not going to get defensive as well, because you're honouring what they were hoping for. So anyway, it's a whole process, but he's the expert on it. But really, really helpful. And what that did, it gave us some language and some framework to be able to talk about these very sensitive, difficult issues in a way that we both felt heard, and we could communicate without the other one getting defensive. So, but I'm a bit like you, Ali, too. I think I'd always thought, I'm a really great communicator, but I realised for me, sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I'll just get over it. Like, it's not worth bringing up. Like, I'll just get on with it. There's bigger things to worry about.
Yeah.
But then after a while, you just keep stuffing, right? And then that's where resentment comes from, because it's these unexpressed needs that you're just hoping you'll deal with. And interestingly, one of the tools that's been transformational is understanding when you're in a negative cycle. So my husband and I will often be avoid. So it looks like everything's going okay, but there's no emotional connection. Like, we've just gone into separate rooms and we're doing our thing, and it's all business as usual, but we've just both put a wall up.
Yep.
And so to call it out, so we'll now say we're in a negative cycle, and how you break the negative cycle is you say what the primary emotion is you're feeling. So it takes a lot of vulnerability to go, hey, I feel really sad, or hey, I feel really angry, or hey, I feel really hurt. But when you express the primary emotion, all your defenses around, and then your partner is able to lean in, because you're not going to them with this self-protection.
Yeah.
And that's often the way you break that pattern. So every couple has a negative cycle, whether it's avoid, pursue, attack. So it's really recognizing what cycle you're in, and then how just recognizing the cycle and then trying to break that cycle. So that's kind of what we're working on, going, okay, we're in that cycle again. What's going on for you? What's going on for me? And then it instantly kind of breaks it, and then the reconnection's there. So it's like trying to reconnect when you feel like there's that disconnection.
Love it. I love that.
That's really good.
Do you think most those emotions that you named, like anger, you did say sadness, but any of those sort of below the line sort of vibes that we have, do you think most of it is rooted in sadness or grounded in sadness, that we get angry because we are sad? For example?
Yeah. Well, there's different theories around primary emotions. So some people think there's 5, some people think there's 7. But I think the ones that often end up in conflict are fear, sadness, and anger. They're often the ones that are lurking below the surface. Some people say anger is a secondary emotion, which is anger. Sadness is swallowed anger, but I tend to think I'd view personally, anger as a primary emotion. So you've got, in a conflict situation, it's normally sadness, anger, or fear that's kind of below the surface.
Yeah,
but we mask that with different secondary emotions, right? And then what we're presenting to our partner is secondary emotions, and then they don't lean into us, because that then often, from a secondary emotion perspective, that puts them defenses up sometimes. But if we get to the heart of the issue, hey, this is how I'm feeling. When your partner says, hey, I feel really sad, you want to lean into them, right?
Yeah.
Or I feel really hurt, I feel really, fearful. You naturally lean in. So that's a way to kind of, quickly break that cycle.
When, I love your love story as it stands today, because, so many times, the place that you said, it's just going to be easier if we get divorced, if we separate, and you fought through, and now you're in a different place relationship-wise. Do you look back on that time and go, gosh, imagine if I would have given this up for what you have today?
Yeah, 100%. I get emotional thinking about it. Whew, yeah. Because you have to. You got to Well, I think, you got to do the work. You got to do the work on yourself. You do. Yeah. To have a great whole marriage, both individuals need to keep growing. I think you can kind of just not settle, but feel like, oh, yeah, we've got this, and, we're doing okay, and got a couple of kids and whatever it is. But I think what I've learned from this process is you have to continue individually and together as a couple, doing the work, constantly working on yourselves, because otherwise it's so easy just to end up one day and go, I don't even know you anymore. The disconnection can just happen so quickly over time without you even realising.
Absolutely.
We this word comes up a lot in our life, and that's curious. So remaining, staying curious with yourself, your own emotions. Why did I say that? Why am I acting? Why am I feeling? But also then what's going on with the partner. Elle gave me. You remember that you gave me that fridge magnet of the older couple walking into the water, and
it's not a magnet. That was actually a postcard. We framed it.
Was it?
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
I thought it was on the fridge. Oh, okay. Or maybe it was framed on the fridge. Anyway.
I don't need to be right about that. I'm fine.
Yeah,
It's okay.
but anyway, it's a gorgeous image of this older couple walking into the water, and they're clearly older, like I would say in their 80s, and they're walking naked, holding hands out to the ocean.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful photograph. And she goes, this will be us, there's me with my, this is like the
Same
ladies.
body shapes. Like she's got a big pear-shaped bum. I'm like, yep. There's a long, tall, skinny dude next to me.
Like, no, that's not right. Now I'm thinking, is it? Whatevs, but there's so, to look at it as a photograph, you go, there's an old couple walking into the water. How delightful. Though when you break it down into years, months, days, experiences that have happened in that time, like the dream is that they got together, as 25, 20, 22-year-old or something all those years ago, and here they are 60 years later walking into the beach, walking into the water, holding hands, still walking into that ocean of love, or however you want to say it. But there's so much to it. And when you say about all the things that you have navigated with your husband and with the children and all those things, and here you are on the other side of it. And who's not to say you're going to go through something else in a couple of years' time, but this all becomes this cumulative experience that we have the privilege when someone walks beside you, chooses to walk beside you. And I come back to this when I go through difficult moments with Elle. I'll just go, I just be grateful that this woman is choosing to walk beside you.
Yes.
Because she could easily go, take that other road, going, it's a lot easier to leave. And believe me, in our 30-odd years together, we've both had reasons to go, it's a lot easier to walk away than try and stick
100%.
together.
Yeah. 100. I so agree. And I think that's what we've got now is, and I even remember you guys on an earlier episode talking about your dynamic earlier and, some of the emotional injuries that happened for you and after the fact, doing the work, right? Having to work through that and sift through that and rebuild and to go, wow, like we've got a deeper, richer connection. And I feel very much the same with my husband and I that, we've walked through stuff and we've had to wrestle through but we still choose each other. Our love is so deep that despite the challenge, despite the hurt, despite all the different things that were working against us, like we still choose each other and we still love each other. And I'm kind of excited because I'm like, you know what? Years to come, we're just going to keep building on that. And you hit roadblocks and difficulties and, it's not smooth sailing, but just, I think some of the fundamental tools that we've learned, I'm like, wow, I feel confident that we can, we've got some really great foundations there to keep building on.
Traditionally, and this is a huge blanket statement, traditionally men are not as forthcoming with their feelings and their emotions. Was it challenging, and again, you're in that space as a psychologist, you've probably already done a lot of work on yourself as well, but was it harder for your husband to come to his feelings and name them and be able to talk about them?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, this is where I own a lot of our challenge was I remember him coming to me when Elodie was maybe 10 weeks old and I was kind of in that stage where I'm like, yes, like we're getting through and I'm coping well and, I'm sleeping well and she's great and like, we've got to keep this going. And he actually came to me, I remember specifically, and he said, I'm really struggling at work. I'm really stressed. There's a lot going on. And I remember going, I can't be there for you right now. Like I'm in my bubble. I'm trying to deal with my own stuff. And what that did, I didn't realize at the time, but what that did, that completely shut him down. And that was like a huge emotional injury for him to go, I cannot open up emotionally to you because you've just said I'm not there for you. And he, I don't think he was overthinking that. Like I think in the moment he was like, I'm being vulnerable and you've just shut me down and I can't go to you now. You're not safe for me to go to. So I need to bottle it up. So prior to that, he was pretty open and then he was like, well, I just need to be there for Sue. So I'm not going to share any of my stuff with her. And that was the start of the disconnect. That was the first step in the downward spiral. And I love Brené Brown, what she says. It takes a woman that's done a lot of work on herself to sit with a man when he's not in a great place emotionally. And that resonates because you got to feel secure in yourself and be in a good space to kind of sit there and see, your partner really be wobbly and be okay to sit in the discomfort of that. So I think, that's probably, I was protecting myself, but really what that did was cause a pretty huge emotional injury for him because I shut that down. And then he was like, right, I'm not opening up. So it's taken a long time for him to feel he can trust me, that he can open up. And I'm like, but I'm a psychologist. Like, I'm a great person to open up to. But it was the history of that, right? It was like he'd opened up and been vulnerable, and I hadn't met him in that. And that did create that injury, and that needed a lot of work to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I know you were talking about James Fishgill and one of the, do you know the Gottman Institute?
Yes,
Love
yeah.
them. And one of the
amazing.
things, one of the things I continue to take from them is, and it's basically what you were sort of saying then, is watch for when your partner is reaching for you. And if you miss that signal, what you're saying is that you don't mean anything to me. So, and it might be in a different way. It might just be, here's a cup of tea, sweetheart, or can I tell you about my day, or I'm feeling really sad, whatever it is. But look for the signals when your partner is reaching their hand across, metaphorically, sort of in a way. I remembered that really vividly because I know I have missed your signals for sure on that behalf, on in that way. So it's like I've got to be more aware of when you're reaching out, put the phone down or pay attention, those moments that we can miss, because it is death by a million paper cuts in that way.
Yes.
There's I would never speak on behalf of all men, though I know there are a lot of wounded little boys out there in men's bodies. And that moment of, we're pretty smart at trying to get our mum's attention, because you go back to that little boy, and we're pretty good at trying to get our mum's attention, and we learn really quick what's going to do it and what's not going to do it. And that moment where there is that slap away, it's something that goes so deep. I can speak for myself and go, that's so deep that you go, okay, note to self, don't do that again.
Yes.
Don't do that again. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
When you're going for your primary female relationship, if that's what you're after. Though for me, it's like, okay, note to self, that didn't work. Go do something else next time. And then, as Elle said, that the whole the accumulation of paper cuts, you just end up just getting so locked away and going, this isn't going to work, and you can end up in a bad way. So what you're talking about is when you stay open to that communication. It's just, we wouldn't be together if we didn't have help in that regard. There's just not a chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does keep us together. Though, as you say, marriage is work. And I'm as you were speaking before, I read this terrific quote that Steve Jobs said probably a week before he passed away, what was important to him. It's quite a long quote that you can find it, you can Google it. And he's talking about, it's not money, it's not things, it's not, this physical stuff that we surround ourselves, it's love, it's the people. That's what, in his last days, all he cared about was his relationships. Yeah. And I didn't read it. I heard it on the radio. And I just came, and I remember feeling not great about things as I was listening to it, and not great about things at home, and then just going, I just needed to hear that message right then, make a right turn, go home, see Elle through the window, as I'm dumping my coffee cup in the garbage. And I'm going, that's what matters. That's
100%. It. Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree with that, Cam. And I think I often ask myself, when I'm on my deathbed, the question I want to ask myself is, how well did you love? Like, really?
Yeah.
How well did you love?
Yeah.
And how well did I love my kids? How well did I love my spouse? How well did I love? Because I think at the end of the day, it's kind of like, if I can die to ego and I can just love and have grace. And I think my overall assumption that I live by is most people are doing the best they can
Yeah.
Most people are not there. Like your spouse isn't there going, how can I hurt you?
Yeah.
How can I hurt you?
And your mum and dad didn't
piss
either.
You off?
Yeah.
No, they didn't. And, unfortunately, we're all imperfect and we're all trying to do the best we can, but we hurt each other deeply. And it's often not something we set out with the intention to do. There's a longing or a desire or a need that's not being met, and we seek to do that. But in the process, we hurt people, right? And so I think, on the back of what you said, Cam, is like relationships are the most important thing and they are the most satisfying thing. But it's this dying to ego, and I think I'm just like grace. How well did I love Suzie? Die to ego. So that's the journey that I'm on. And you know what? The other thing I think that I've learnt through this is, and I'm trying to get to that point where you're not dependent on external validation from anyone else or your partner. That you can validate yourself. You can validate your worth, your needs. Yes, your partner's complementary to that, but get to a point where you've done the work enough that you can validate yourself.
Oh, that's so good.
It also helps when you get 342 likes on your latest post on Instagram. let's be honest.
It's a very specific number.
I've got 341. I'm waiting for the next one. Damn it. Come on.
Well, Suzie Plush, we love you. You have been such a delight to have in our bathroom, and I just love your story. I love how much you've shared, and it's just so, you're just so wonderful, how humble you are and being able to own your own shit, basically, and know that, what your participation was in your marriage and your relationship. I think you can't go forward without that either. So thank you so much for your story. It was really amazing talking with you.
Thanks, guys. I just feel so honoured to be able to be in your company, and just like I said before at the start of the podcast, just think what you're putting out there, the content is just so helpful for so many individuals. So just want to honour you both for that, and really so privileged to be here today.
Thank you, Suzie. Thanks for your time. Suzie Plush. How good was that?
She was just so she was so interesting and lovely. Like, I don't know, I guess I've sort of had experiences, not all psychologists by far. In fact, I can pretty much say the psychologists that we've had in our bathroom have all been very humble and very giving and very, I own my own stuff. But we've come across some people that have been like, I don't do anything wrong. I've got all my stuff figured out. Let me share my wisdom with you. I don't
You never
relate.
You've always gone, nah. Like that. But I think it's also, honey, in there's a code of ethics with psychologists and things that they don't share their own stuff.
True.
And it's not part of it because it's really about the client, isn't it? So I understand that, yet what my feeling was with Suzie, it was great to hear. I mean, it's really great to hear that she, as a professional, has gone through tough times.
Yep. And then had to work through
challenges,
and then come out the other side and then still working.
And can speak with, and I'm sure most people who are in the game who don't speak about it also have their own experience of it, and they speak from their experience about the client, but they don't bring their own stuff in. And I've always found it a lot more relatable when someone is, you know that they've gone through stuff.
Absolutely.
And I reckon that's why people love a comeback story, in sports or whatever, because we know that person's been through.
Yeah, it's relatable.
It's difficult stuff. It was great. All right. Thanks for being here. If you've enjoyed this episode of Separate Bathrooms, please, can you like us? Speaking about validation, that's so funny.
372 likes. Is that what you want?
Yeah, we're looking for 373 validatory ticks from you as our listener. It's just part of the business. It's part of the business, these likes. So.
And on that note, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Cheers.
Bye for now.